It's finally time, guys. UFC 287 takes place in just a couple of days. We've got Israel Adesanya taking on Alex Poatan Pereira for the fourth time. We've got Gilbert Burns taking on Jorge Masvidal in the co-main event. Feature fight, Rob Font versus Adrian Yanez. Stacked card. I wouldn't say top to bottom, but once it gets closer up to the top, it's a really good card. For my star prospect of the night, goes without saying, Raul Rosas Jr., youngest fighter on the UFC roster, youngest fighter to ever sign with the promotion at just 17 years old. He's undefeated, and they're giving him a matchup that I feel like favors him and will probably push him further. Moving on to our show stealer of the night, without question, Rob Font versus Adrian Yanez. I can't see this being anything but a stand-up war if this fight even went to the ground, to be completely honest with you. I really would be. And then we go into the fighter that's in the oven. It's Israel Adesanya, of course. This fight could affect his legacy as a GOAT, as one of the best in the division. I mean, it won't affect that necessarily, but it can do a lot to taint his legacy and maybe even taint his championship aspirations for breaking records. So without further ado, let's just get straight into the card. First fight of the night, Jaqueline Amorim taking on Sam Hughes. I'm going to go with Jaqueline Amorim. She's undefeated. Sam Hughes is somebody that's been figured out by quite a few different talents in the octagon so far, and she's not a bad fighter by any means, but I just feel like Jaqueline Amorim is a lot more aggressive, is a lot better as a grappler, and will probably win this fight by a dominant, unanimous decision. Moving on into the featherweight division, we've got Yilan Nurimbeke. I don't know how to pronounce that, so I'm sorry that I just butchered it. Taking on Steve Garcia. This man has over 50 fucking fights, and 70-something% of them have, or 80-something% of them have ended by a finish. Crazy, man. Crazy. This man is a finisher. He's a lot more experienced than Steve Garcia. 50-something fights to 15. I have to pick Yilan Nurimbeke just for that reason alone, and I'm going to have to ride with his finishing rate. I feel like he can get it done by a TKO in the second round. Moving on into a catchweight bout, Ignacio Bahamondes taking on Trey Ogden. I'm going with Ignacio Bahamondes here, but I don't think this is going to be an easy fight by any means, and I'm actually nervous for this pick, just a little bit. Trey Ogden is a lot more tested than a lot of the fighters that Ignacio Bahamondes has taken on, but lately he's started to really come into his own, and he's only 25. He's still so young. He has a lot to offer in the octagon. He has a lot to show for himself. I'm going to trust him to be able to get this one done, but again, I think this is going to be a war, probably going to be 2-1 for Ignacio Bahamondes. Moving on into the 115-pound division, we've got Cynthia Calvillo taking on Lupita Goodinez. I'm going with Lupita Goodinez. Cynthia Calvillo is mid. I don't know what else to say about it. She's also on the tail end of her career. I think it's probably going to be a closer fight than it should be, with that being said. But I still think that Lupita Goodinez is going to overwhelm her in the grappling exchanges and probably win a decision. Moving on to the heavyweight division, Carl Williams taking on Chase Sherman. Carl Williams just fought last month. So respect to him for getting right back out there, trying to get his name known with the fans. Honestly, I kind of forgot who he was. And then when I was doing my research for this video, I remembered that I just watched him fight and I just picked him to win. So I'm going to trust him to get it done again. Chase Sherman has no takedown defense, really mid grappling. He's not bad on the feet and he's not bad as a heavyweight, but I don't think he's going to be able to figure out Carl Williams, who only has one loss so far. So I'm going with Carl Williams, probably by a TKO in the third round by ground and pound. Now into the 185-pound division, we've got the GOAT, GM3, Gerald Meerschaert taking on Joe Pyfer. If you guys checked out my video earlier this month for the fighters you should look out for in March to April, Joe Pyfer was on that list because he is somebody I think you should really pay attention to. I think he could be a prospect and a name to look out for in the 185-pound division. I think it's going to be like most 85ers where he'll put on 3 to 4 wins back-to-back and then get finished by somebody he shouldn't lose to or lose to somebody he shouldn't, like Andre Muniz recently. But, man, it's so hard to pick against GM3. I am going to be going with Joe Pyfer by a TKO or a knockout. But GM3 has had some goated matches lately, some goated performances. He always finds a way to get that sub. I don't understand it. He beat Bruno Silva better than Alex Pereira could. It's weird. MMA doesn't make sense. Either way, I'm still going with Joe Pyfer. Now into the 115-pound division again. Michelle Waterson taking on Luana Pinheiro. I kind of want to side with Michelle Waterson here just because she's a crafty vet, but she's getting older, and I worry that she's not in this as much as someone that is up and coming like Luana Pinheiro. Michelle Waterson's had her main events. She's had her big fights for her division. Luana Pinheiro has not, and she's only lost one time. So I kind of want to side with Luana Pinheiro. I could regret this because these female fights lately have been doing me dirty, but I'm going to say fuck it and just go with Luana Pinheiro. But if I lose this pick, I'm forever going to be siding with these fucking veterans after this. Now into the main prelim of the night. We've got Chris Curtis taking on Kelvin Gastelum. Fuck, man. I really want to pick Kelvin, especially with Henry Cejudo in his corner and a lot of the other people that he trains with. Marvin Vettori, just a lot of really good talent. But I just don't feel like his head is in this sport the same way it needs to be for him to be taking somebody out like Chris Curtis, who hasn't had his moment, has been fighting for probably the same amount of time, but wasn't in the UFC, was on other promotions, just not getting his pay or his respect. So I feel like Chris Curtis is going to be hungry to bounce back from that weak-ass loss he had to Jack Hermanson and really just continue building his name up and try to chase that belt, if that is what he's trying to do at the end of the day. But I would not be surprised if Kelvin Gastelum squeaks out a decision here using his wrestling. That's like what makes me want to lean towards Kelvin, but ultimately I'm going to go with Chris Curtis. I feel like he won't be able to finish Kelvin, but he'll be able to hurt him and land those body shots all day long. Now into our main card, Raul Rosas Jr., the prospect of the night, taking on Christian Rodriguez. As I spoke on it a little bit earlier, I just feel like Raul Rosas Jr. is being put into a spot where he's supposed to flourish on the main card of UFC 287, a stacked pay-per-view event against an opponent that only has one loss and looked good against someone like Jonathan Pierce, who is tested at 145. But I feel like if Raul Rosas Jr. gets him in certain grappling exchanges that Jonathan Pierce got him in, he's going to finish him in those positions. So that's what I'm going to call. I'm going to call a third round submission for Raul Rosas Jr. I feel like the first two rounds will be decently close. Maybe Christian Rodriguez will win one round, but I think Raul Rosas Jr. is steadily going to win positions and eventually pick up a submission. Now into the 170 pound division, welterweight. We got Kevin Holland taking on Santiago Ponzinibbio. This should be like the lock of the main card, to be honest. I feel like Kevin Holland should easily be able to get this done, but you just never know with that guy. He does not always fight the smartest, and I'm a huge Kevin Holland fan, so don't whoop my ass for saying that. But I'm worried for you, man. I know the last fight, it was a broken hand, but even then you weren't making good decisions, and I still think Wonderboy would have whooped you. And the fight before that, you got mauled by Khamzat, and you saved the card, so I'm really not going to give you any shit for that. But you gotta show out for this one. I think it should be a striking war for the most part. It could go to the ground, but I would honestly favor Kevin Holland's BJJ and scrambling on the ground if it hits the mat. I'm going to go with Kevin Holland by a second round TKO like he usually does, feeling out the first round and then catching Santiago maybe at the end of the first and finishing the job sometime in the second. Now for the feature fight of the night, Rob Font versus Adrian Yanez. Adrian Yanez is 5-0 in the UFC. He's looked amazing in every fight. Even the fights that he's been shown some adversity, or had to fight through some adversity, I should say, he's been able to do it. He's done surprisingly well against people like, what was his name? Randy Costa with the range and the head kicks, just using his jab and his straight and really playing the range game on Yanez. But he ends up figuring it out after getting his face busted up in the first and busting up my man's face in the second and winning the fight and continuing his perfect streak in the octagon. And again, the theme of the night tonight is, do these fighters really want it? And I don't think Rob Font does. I don't think he wants it as much as Adrian Yanez. And I think if Aldo and Cheeto can whoop your ass like that, then of course this young gun, Mini Masvidal, is probably going to come up and beat your ass. So I'm going to go with Adrian Yanez in a scrap, getting a late second round TKO. Now for the co-main event, Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal. This is risky because Gilbert Burns, while he is a great fighter, great grappler, decent striker, and he loves to go to war, he is susceptible to them punches down the middle. And he's been tagged a lot. He's been dropped, I believe, 7 times in the UFC. 6 or 7 times. And that's not good. Somebody like Jorge, who's a crafty veteran, crafty striker especially, he's going to set traps throughout the fight for as long as you give him and make you pay. He's going to land that calf kick that he honestly low-key started. He's one of the first fighters to start using that way back in the day. He's going to be looking to chop at those, and I think he's going to be looking to play the range game, to be completely honest with you, and try to catch Gilbert coming in. but I still feel like Gilbert's tenacity and his grappling is going to be enough to overwhelm Jorge. But I'm fully fucking ready to be wrong for that. This is the one fight on the card that I have a bad feeling Jorge Masvidal is going to win out of nowhere just because the whole world is picking him not to. Either way, I'm still going to be a part of the whole world, and I'm going to side with Gilbert Burns, getting it done by a decision, but I'm nervous. Now for our main event of the night. One of the greatest main events in, honestly, UFC history. In MMA history, it'll go down as one of the greatest quadrilogy fights in the last decade, in my opinion, because of the storyline and everything that's led up to this moment, and the fact that we have a former dominant champion like Israel Adesanya with his back up against the wall. Like, you couldn't write a better story. Alex Poatan Pereira versus Israel Adesanya, 2 in MMA, but reality, it's the 4th fight for the both of them, with Alex Pereira leading the dance 3-0 right now. I'm starting to see a lot of analysts, fans, and whatnot picking Alex Pereira and really, really confidently feeling like he's going to get Israel out of there in like the 2nd round, and I completely understand it. Alex Pereira is not a 185er, and that really plays into his favor going into a fight with somebody like Izzy, who's primarily been able to use his reach and his frame and his stature to have a massive advantage over his opponents. It doesn't obviously carry him the win, but it does a lot for him. I mean, look at someone like John Jones. It's what really helped him dominate light heavyweight for a long ass time. He didn't run into problems with people until he started fighting people his size. And I think that's a big thing here when it comes to Izzy versus Alex. And I think another obvious factor is that Izzy is most definitely the better fighter. He's way better as an MMA fighter overall, and I would say he's even a better striker. But Alex Pereira is always dangerous, and that's what makes it difficult to fight somebody like that, because he's always dangerous and he has the mentality of a champion. So he will be coming for you. If you hurt him, he'll come for you even more. He will stalk you down until the last bell or until you put him out, and nobody can really seem to put him out. Oddly enough, though, I'm going to pick Izzy to put him out. I'm going to pick Izzy to understand what he needs to do and hunt him down. Like he said, the hunter has become the hunted, and I think he can get it done by a 3rd round TKO. But I'm really nervous for this fight, too. The last 2 fights on the card, it's kind of a toss-up. And that's why we love MMA, right? We don't know what's going to happen, even when we really think we do. I'm really excited to see how this card plays out. Let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know if you fuck with the predictions. Also, go check out my video on the MMA Guru. I just made it the other day. It's already my biggest video on the channel. 60 plus comments, so there's tons of interaction. Go check it out. Let me know what your opinion is on the matter. But yeah, I'll catch y'all. Have a good one.